to the microphone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Let me stand on the protocols already established, but it would be proper to recognize His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima. It is also proper to recognize the Governor of Delta State, all the governors here present, all cabinet ministers here present, and of course the traditional rulers and the keynote speaker, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. In a proper setting, there should be no other speech after the keynote speech. But because I find myself in this space, I will say only the following things, then I resume my seat. Number one, that I thought about the subject that I was told to speak about, and I've written a full-blooded paper which will be availed to you. Number two, that in many ways the speakers who have come before me have identified the critical issues that are relevant to the development of the Delta State. However, it is important to point out a number of issues that I consider critical when I look at the continent of Africa and our inclination to gloss over certain critical things. Many times when we talk about Africa, and I say so because Delta State is a state within the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is one of the 54 African states. We are quick to say that we are 1.4 billion. That is all very well. But the question that we must ask ourselves is, what are we doing about the 1.4 billion? As I speak to you now, I invite you to see what is happening in Morocco and the young men and women who are running away and dying trying to go to Europe, which tells us this: there is a lot to be done in the continent. And that is what gladdens my heart, that in your own small way here in Delta, recognizing as you do that Nigeria must be built state by state, you are beginning to recognize the areas that ought to receive attention. You are recognizing that oil must be utilized. And you, Mr. Governor, did tell us that you are aware of what the Norwegians have done, that they now have a sovereign fund of nearly 3 billion or 3 trillion United States dollars. The question that you must therefore ask yourself, will you do that here in the Delta State? We have been told that when we talk about oil in Nigeria, you are the oil state in Nigeria. The question is, are you using the oil resources and comparing yourselves not with other African countries? It is the Ugandan president who said, and I've always agreed with him, that there is the tendency in Africa to compare ourselves as dwarfs compare amongst themselves who is the taller one. Because at the end of the day, they are all dwarfs, even if one is an inch taller than the other. I want you in Delta to compare yourselves with others. Your own country or your own state has an economy larger than over 20 African countries, a GDP larger than 20 African states. The question is, with all the resources that we have, whether we are talking about agriculture, whether we are talking about minerals, whether we are talking about oil, whether we are talking about pharmaceutical sectors, whether we are talking about the blue economy, what are we doing that is in keeping with the demands of the 21st century? The world now talks about the fourth and fifth industrial revolution. The world now talks about artificial intelligence. But I always ask my fellow Africans who are quick to talk about artificial intelligence, who controls the artificial intelligence that we consume in the continent of Africa? It is not us. It could be withdrawn in the twinkling of an eye, and we go back to the dark ages. So the question is, as you are here in Delta, having identified the critical areas and the strengths that you have as a people, what will we do? The keynote speaker has reminded us of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And you know, when I look at the Continental Free Trade Area, and I look at the many writings about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, it is not Africans who are writing. It is others. It is the Chinese. It is the Europeans. So that if you wanted an expert on Africa Continental Free Trade Area, you don't look to Africa. And that is tragic, Honorable Governor. It is equally tragic that in our interpretation and understanding of who an investor is in the continent of Africa, we still don't think that fellow Africans are investors. We think, and allow me to be blunt, that our investors must be Malaysians. We think that our investors must be Brazilians. We think that our investors must be Chinese. That is not the case. And I'm saying this because in the year 2018, I and others started something called the Pan-African Investment Movement. We have now visited 6 countries, and we have told heads of state that even Africans with $100,000 each, $100,000 each, putting the money together, are investors. When a few Africans heard I was coming here from as far as Trinidad and Tobago, they asked me, but why were we not invited? I said, next time. Because next time, Honorable Governor, I want to see Kenyans here. I want to see Ghanaians here. I want to see Sudanese here. I want to see Ethiopians here. I want to see Moroccans here. I want to see Egyptians here, because Africans must begin to believe that they have both the intellectual and financial wherewithal to participate in the development of their continent. Because it is only when we do so that our friends of goodwill from Brazil, our friends of goodwill from China, our friends of goodwill from Europe, our friends of goodwill from the United States of America will begin to believe that the relationship between us and them is symbiotic rather than parasitic. And I'm submitting to us that many times what we call development is not development, is parasitism. And I am urging you, my brother, as you serve as the governor of Delta, you are doing a good job, but that job can be better. That job can be an African job. That job can give meaning to Africa Continental Free Trade Area. That job can have meaning to Africa Agenda 2063, but a number of critical issues must also be done by the Nigerian federal government. We must allow people to move freely within the continent. Your Excellency, the Vice President, Nigeria is the biggest economy in real terms in sub-Saharan Africa. I look forward to the day when, if I'm an investor in Delta, I want to invest in the blue economy, I want to invest in any area, I can take my plane from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia and arrive here in Asaba without a landing and exit card. I look forward to that day. I look forward to the day when there will be no visa for an African coming to this country. Because when you are big, the expectations from you are big. When we talk about Europe now, it is possible to move from Bratislava in Slovakia to Lisbon in Portugal using one currency. But here I move from Nigeria, then there is the cedi. Then I move from there, then there is the dollar. We cannot run an economy where we are so fragmented. And God has placed you, because I'm told you are a godly man, in a unique position. You are entitled to celebrate what is happening here in Delta. But it must be a contagious positive thing. You must contaminate Anambra that they do the same thing. You must contaminate other neighbors, and ultimately you must contaminate the federal government. And it is proper that we invited His Excellency the Vice President so that this message will go to Abuja, and that your example will be used as an example that will be replicated across the Federal Republic of Nigeria and ultimately across the continent of Africa. You know, Your Excellency, as I said at the beginning, when the keynote speaker has spoken, wisdom only demands one thing, that I conclude. And this is how I conclude. I conclude by congratulating the government of Delta. I congratulate the government of Delta by recognizing that they have strengths. But I'm urging you going forward, ask yourself, how are you using your young population who are graduating from the universities? What skills are they receiving? I'm asking, how are you using your academics from the universities? What is the budget that you have set apart for research and development so that your academics are not only individuals who preside over graduation ceremonies, but they are producing thoughts and they are engaged in research which is informing agriculture, which is informing energy, which is informing all the critical areas. And as my good friend Tony Elumelu said, you can talk development all you want, but if you don't have energy, you are going nowhere. You are going nowhere, because how are you going to compete with the Chinese? Let me give you an example, then I sit down. Nigeria generates no more than 5,000 megawatts of electricity. You lose a bit of it in distribution. China generates 3 million megawatts of electricity, which means that the seats we are sitting on, even if you wanted to produce them here in the Delta, people would still buy them from China because they are cheaper. I'm therefore suggesting that energy should be one of the critical areas in which you focus. And we now know that gas can be used in that area. We now know that diesel can be used in that area. And this is a good journey. And as one of your fellow Nigerians once said, and this is not gender insensitive, that a chick that will grow into a cock is seen on the day that it hatches. Even a hen that will grow into a chick that will grow into a hen is seen on the day it hatches. Delta looks good. Make it good. Allow it to remain good. Think beyond yourself. in the knowledge that you are not successful until your successor succeeds. God bless.
Where is the music? Where is the music? Okay.